lovelies. Esther here. Pardon my headset. I'm trying different forms of recording with the hopes that I can improve the sound quality of my videos. This one's pretty goofy, but I think the sound's pretty good. So we'll just roll with it. We'll roll with my boom mic. Okay. Hi. Today I want to share with you a quick demonstration of my pivot card reading method. This pivot card idea is a relatively new idea for me. I just started working with it. I just hatched the idea a couple weeks ago. And, like all new relationships, it's like, I'm in love. I'm sort of tingly about this pivot card idea, and I'm still discovering how deep it goes. I'm still in that infatuation phase where I don't quite know why I love it so much. Does it really do what I think it does? Does it really tingle me all the way down to my toes? And I'm getting better and better, I think, at explaining what the pivot card method is, and hopefully making you fall in love with it too. The basic premise of the pivot card spread or reading method, because it's not really a spread. You can use it with various different spreads. I think a 3-card spread is the way to go with it. But the basic premise behind the pivot card is that, a tarot spread gives us, by design, it gives us a snapshot of things. Even if the tarot spread has built into it a temporal dimension, like if we have a card that represents the past or a card that represents the future, even if there's a time dimension built into the spread itself is still static. We're still seeing it laid out in 2 dimensions, right? In a blink of the eye, right? It's a snapshot. So how do we, looking at a tarot spread, how do we find that pivotal aspect of the spread that helps us see in this display of things as they are, that helps us see the pressure points, maybe, that helps us find where to place that acupuncture needle of our insight in order to help the change that is possible emerge. So not to push anything away, not to whole hog try to bring something into being that wasn't there. The universe is here, it's full, it's abundant, it's all present all at once. Nothing is missing from the universe that we are encountering breath by breath. But how is change possible? Where do we place, where is the meridian, the meridian point where we can place that needle of awareness, so that things can change in the most valuable and skillful way. Change is always happening. It's always underway. The universe is here, present, abundant in every moment, and always in flux. Our tarot spread gives us a snapshot of that. But it's like gravity, accepting gravity can mean falling out of a 3-story window and, breaking your body, or it can mean dancing a pirouette, right? So how do we work skillfully with the forces of our life? The pivot card method is all about that. It's finding that pressure point where we can place the acupuncture needle of awareness, where we can find the pivot, the fulcrum of this moment, right? I hope that makes sense. So how do we do that? So I'm going to show you the pivot card reading method with a 3-card spread, because I think that's the easiest and most direct and most effective way to use it. I could be wrong. I could discover something else, but I think this is the way to go. And with the pivot card reading method, there are 2 cards that that are given to us off the bat. Okay. The first card is going to be like our daily card, what I call the moving card, the card that captures this moment in its sort of most basic appearance. For me, in this month, I'm filming this in March 2022. And this month, my moving card is the same card every day. It's my card of the month, Judgment. Let me see, the light is, there we go. In Kim Kranz's Wild Unknown, this is the first edition of the deck, although this card remains unchanged in all of the editions of the deck. It's a black and white card, right? It's a very simple, in some ways, very simple card. It's like probably one of my least favorite cards in the deck. It just doesn't visually have that great appeal, but it's judgment. This is the card about rising up, about a reckoning that takes us into a new level of discernment, that meeting the call, right? Coming out of shadow into light. This is my card of the month. So the moving card could be a card that you draw for that day, like your daily card. It could be the card of the month. It could be a card that you're focusing on because you're studying it. Whatever it is, it's the card that you want to see. You want to see the movement in that card. That's why it's the moving card. You want to see the movement in that card and understand it so that you can find the pivot point. The second card, which is also a card that's going to be given, not a card that you necessarily draw in the moment of the reading, is your pivot card. Now that could be any card that you elevate to some level of high significance for you right now in your life. So it could be if you've done a Wheel of Life spread or some other year ahead spread where you have a central card, the hub card of your wheel. It could be that hub card. It could be your soul card or your year card. It could be a card that you're just fascinated by, a card that has a special elevated meaning to you, like the High Priestess. Or it could be a card that's been stalking you and you're like, this card seems supercharged with meaning. So it's a card that you have invested with a high level of meaning. And so you expect that this card is pivotal in some way. So for me, my hub card for 2022 is justice. Now, because I'm exploring justice and judgment every single day of this month, one of the ways that I'm bringing new information into the mix is to use a different deck for my pivot card each day. So my starting point, my moving card, is Judgment in Kim Kranz's Wild Unknown. This is the card that I drew when I did my Wheel of Life spread. I was using this deck. So there's a sort of stability to this card and this deck, okay? But now I'm working with a different deck for my pivot card because I want to kind of get some new juice into it. So this is from Nosotras Tarot, a Brazilian deck, which I have Danielle Christmas to thank for pointing it out to me. It's a really amazing deck with all of these kind of archetypal and manipulated images of female ancestors. It's really diverse. It's Brazilian, so there's a lot of focus on kind of images that evoke colonialism and indigeneity, and lots of nudity, lots of female bodies of all types. It's a really amazing deck, and it's reminiscent of a deck like Carrie Paris's Relative Tarot or the Uncommon Tarot, where the use of, or Marie Bento's stuff, where the use of archival images to me always has this kind of ancestral feel to it, like I'm sinking down into something really deep. So it's a very powerful deck, which I've only just started working with. And this is the Justice card. So Justice was my hub card for 2022. So when I pick this as my pivot card and use it in a spread, what I'm particularly wanting to find is a detail that strikes me as pivotal. That's why this month I've been using different decks for my pivot card and then for the third card that I draw, because I'm trying to bring new information into the mix so that I can find that meridian, that pivotal point, that fulcrum, and help find with these cards that are important to me for my Wheel of Life spread, try to find the places where there's a possibility for turning that kind of center of gravity, where I can just, life can move there. I can find the powerful movement that's latent in this spread. So here we've got Justice. And right off the bat, so there's a heart and a female. No, there's two female bodies. It's really hard to see. It's a heart and a brain. Can you see that? That's what the image, that's what the collage is doing here. So weighing head and heart, and the nakedness of the female figures, the blindness of this queenly image in the middle, the sword of justice in her lap, like the sword's at rest, but there's, and she's blind to this moment, the impartiality of it, but ready to strike as needed, ready to cut away what needs to be cut away. And some stuff about racial politics. I mean, the two naked women are white. The woman in the center is of African heritage. She's black. Can't really tell what the backdrop is. It looks like some kind of a bridge. But I think what I'm drawn to is the ways in which blindness here is tied to power, right? The sash across her lap is where the sword rests. The impartial blinding of the eyes echoes that sash. And the utter equality of head and heart. And then the sun and the moon too, which also have these figures here that also have naked bodies, naked female bodies. So there's a balance and a harmony here, but also a power. Okay, I don't know what's pivotal yet about this card, but my hope is going to be to find in this card that pivotal detail that will allow me to understand in judgment, in my card of the month, in my moving card, to understand what's moving and where it's possible to apply a kind of acupuncture needle of insight in order to create change. So now, to help me along, I'm going to pick a third card. So I'm creating as you can probably sense, I'm creating a chariot spread here. And I'm going to pick a third card, which I call the mover card, because it's kind of this provocative, calibrating card that helps me find my pivot. And I'm using Nosotros Tarot again. So what I've been doing this month is judgments remain the same, but I've been, for my justice card, my pivot card, I've been changing out the deck. And for my calibrating card, my mover, I've been changing the deck. Five of Swords. Wow. So the smoke in front of her face, or the cloud in front of the central victorious figure's face in her bathing costume, the two geishas warding her off. But that cloud in front of her face really does echo the blindness of justice. And then, the swords. Okay, so this card is helping me find what's pivotal here, which is that power is not about being able to see, but being able to suspend judgment, being able to hold things in balance. There's a kind of self-blinding that seems powerful here. Not the gesture of the geishas who are refusing to look, but this willingness to be impartial, to suspend. So, with my judgment card, I've been really focused um, on discernment, on a kind of ability to see my way through this month, to make decisions, to make choices, to get clarity, to find the way through, find the way into the light. And what this Justice card is my pivot, and my mover card of the Five of Swords, which is a card that's about a kind of victory, but a victory that has some real loss built into it. I think this card is inviting me to embrace the not knowing and the not seeing. That pushing toward a kind of triumphant answer, toward a kind of victory, actually is not helpful. Instead, that there needs to be this wisdom about knowing when to keep things in balance. This Justice is not a Justice card that's about, doesn't seem like it's a Justice card that's about cause and effect in the way that Justice often is, or about karma in the way that Justice often is. This is what the authors of this deck, Elisa Reamer, she did the art. I don't know if she wrote the book. Blindfolded in the absence of superficial judgment, Justice balances between reason and emotion, sun and moon, brain and heart, remaining in balance between opposite poles. The balance weighs what really has value and defines destiny. Brings the sword in his hands, for Justice is merciless and always comes to cut off, making the necessary adjustments. So maybe the willingness to cut things off is like, you got to hold the balance here. So there's this Five of Swords is, it's a more positive version of the card than I sometimes see, I think, because she's just badass, So I think this Justice card is saying, in order to have power, the power to choose and the power to be merciless and to use the sword as needed, to have that power, I have to be willing to suspend, to balance, not to push for clarity too soon. So the pivot, find the balance, be willing to hold both sides, be willing to cut off what needs to be cut off as needed. The balance weighs what really has value and defines destiny. Maybe trying to move too quickly into the light without finding the balance of light and dark, of head and heart, of sun and moon. Yeah, I've been getting messages about integration a lot lately, integrating the parts, and the sun and the moon, the male and the female. The Jung would say myself, my anima and animus. Okay. Yeah. Be willing to find the balance. Be willing to forestall that movement into the light of clarity. Be willing to be in the cloud. Your power comes from there. Okay. That willingness is kind of where the pressure point is. That's where I want the acupuncture needle to go. Okay. Yeah, that was a reading in real time with all of its hems and haws and and let me look at the book. So I do think it's useful. I've had students tell me that it's really helpful actually to see more and more real-time readings, where people don't gloss over not having all the complete answers all at once, where you get to see how people's process works. So that's my process. That's the pivot card reading method. And I'll probably, if it's helpful, let me know, post more videos like this in the future. Okay, take care, everyone.